Yeah, we're gonna check out this video here that's talking about like loot within NGS, kind of discussing how this person wants it for version 2, kind of like my opinion on it as well. Because like the loot hasn't like felt as good in NGS as it did in base in a way, at least like with a lot of the fodder. So I wanted to like see what they were going to mention with like the loot overhaul. I just kind of like suggestions with that. I watched it for like 20 or 30 seconds. I'm like, maybe I should just save this. Yeah, let's see what they have to say. My biggest wish for the NGS version 2 update.
You know, there is this saying. You never know what you have until you lose it.
True.
This saying has been stuck in my head for the past few weeks. I've been playing some PSO2 Classic, trying to retrace some steps
classic.
I did on JP servers that I've never done on global servers.
Let's see if I can turn this up.
But playing the game again reminded me of how much worse the loot in New Genesis is.
Yeah, it's...
In today's episode of PS Opinion, I'd like to discuss that.
Fixing the loot of NGS, my biggest wish for the version 2 update.
Let's lay down the groundwork first. In PSO2 Classic, the process of attaching desired augments onto your gear was much more convoluted than it is in New Genesis. Items can drop with random augments attached to them, and if you want to move them to a desired item, it takes a little bit of work and mental gymnastics.
Yeah, like, it was kind of like a give or take system, right? Like, it was very complicated, but it was also kind of nice for, like, drops. So, essentially anything could have a good augment on it that you would want to put on, like, the actual pieces of gear that you're using. So, like, right now with NGS, you get all this fodder that has nothing on it that you want, so the only thing that you're doing with it is just converting it to cash. So, like, in the urgent quests or whatever, where you get, like, 30 different items of, like, the same thing, it doesn't do anything for you. Like, what's the point? Why not just give us straight Meseta? Yeah, this was almost like too complicated though. Cause I know for sure, like when I played base game or classic PSO2, like I just did not use the system very well because you had to like use some augments with others to combine them into new ones, and then like there's this whole like tree that went like 20 different ways, and to lead to a whole bunch of different like augments. It was pain.
You can't
like I like how it is now with like the augment capsules where you just kind of put them on, but I feel like a combination of the two systems would be nice.
Simply just pull out one augment from a weapon or unit and move it to the next. You have to use
it just
fodders to create better fodders, and once you have assembled the perfect
you had to combine fodders together, yeah, because like you wanted like the good augments to then transfer in. Also you had to like upslot
fodder items. You can start attaching them to the item you want. It is a convoluted system that has many mechanics under the hood, which the game simply doesn't teach you about. But the system was actually kind of genius because it allowed every piece of loot to be worth something, depending on the augments attached to it. A 1-star unit could still be your most valuable drop in a quest. Simply
yeah, because like if it just had like that insane augment that you want, then yeah, you could sell it for a ton of money. But you can't really do that nowadays because there's just nothing on it. I feel like a good way of going about it would be to go back to this kind of system, but also still have the augment capsules where you can just put them on. I feel like a combination of the two would be nice. But there would have to be some sort of way to either like extract augments off of these pieces or transfer it like base game. I don't know. There'd have to be like some give or take with it. Because couldn't go fully back to this system. Because it'd just be like convoluted again.
Augment with a high slot amount. In New Genesis, all of the value is pushed onto the augment capsule, and it makes weapons and units worthless. Because of this, the auto sell feature had to be implemented, which basically removes most of the loot from the game, and makes the loot tables feel hollow.
Yeah, I feel like with the auto sell thing, they're pretty much just like selling that to players. Like they introduced a problem, which was you permanently have auto loot on with all this trash. So then they sold people this auto sell system so that they could make money. Like it was just like a dirty scheme. They're selling the solution to their own problem, kind of thing. Like in my opinion, I feel like auto sell should just be available to all players, free to play or not. Like it shouldn't be tied to premium or star gems, anything like that, because they created the problem which wasn't even there in base PSO2. Because there was auto looting, but you could select what could be auto looted up to, you know, like a certain like rarity amount. But like everything could just be picked up off the ground, while in NGS it's just all just dumped into your inventory. Where if you don't have this auto sell system, you pretty much have to sell like every couple of minutes if you're doing combat zones, like PSC bursting. Like you have to stop, go through all your items, and then go again and again. So just like a very, I don't know, like it just feels like punishing or just like insanely annoying to not have this. Because it just like cuts into your gameplay or your game time like so much. It just like almost makes the experience just way worse overall, which is like not enjoyable.
Which basically removes most of the loot from the game.
One of the main
and
reasons
makes the
why I
loot
hate
tables
combat
feel
zones
hollow.
to begin with.
And the best part about PSO2 affixing was that offensive augments offered so little power that the system wasn't mandatory. Only hardcore players would frown on you for not affixing your gear, but that's just a loud minority of players. The fact that PSO2 augmenting offered very little power also helped with paid augments. Grand Precision was best in slot, but it really wasn't that important to have. Meanwhile in NGS, if you don't have ADI augments on all 4 of your items, you're missing out a lot of overall damage.
Yeah, like it definitely does seem like they're trying to monetize like the augment thing and the auto sell, just all of that. Yeah, because the addies for NGS are way more impactful.
This is because all damage increasing augments are multiplicative in New Genesis.
Every time you look at a chart to make Guardian Soul feel like I'm having a stroke, yep. That's why I said they need like a combination of the two systems, right?
So, the more damage augments you have, the more they snowball out of control. This punishes players for using non-offensive augments like Dreadkeeper, which are popular among the casual crowd.
Like, I don't know, maybe it's just like what I said, where you can just transfer off of like things. Like, say an item drops and just like has a certain amount of augments on it. They can like transfer it into one of your pieces. But there's also just augment capsules in general. But maybe like some like augments can't just be dropped in capsule form or something. I don't know. Or maybe it's like expensive to like transfer off. But there has to be like some sort of like catch to it, right? Because otherwise it'd just be going back to the same system, which I don't think we want. Because I personally like the item lab with creating or crafting augments, because it's like way more straightforward. Like with Halfinale and Gigasmaste, whatever.
Players. In PSO2, most of the power came from the weapon of choice, and getting some of the top weapons wasn't that difficult. The key difference between a casual and hardcore player was in skill. Now it's skill and the depth of your purse.
The depth of your purse, yeah.
PSO2's affixing system was more complicated than it had to be, and many people don't miss the system at all. I personally believe simply making the system more easier to understand would have been better than getting rid of it entirely. But I don't think going back to it now is possible anymore. So let's work with what we have. How can we improve the loot? Well, first of all, the easiest way would be to improve the preset skills system. It's been 2 years, and it's still the same 3 different fixa skills that drop at an abysmally low rate, to the point where if you turn auto sell on, you might forget that enemies even have weapons and units in their loot tables at all. Making preset skills more common, being able to level them up, being able to transfer them across weapon series, as well as add new skills for more variety, would go a long way in making this system feel more like a proper weapon customization system. A few preset skills I can pull out of thin air.
Yeah, this is kind of like something that I was saying for like a long time that they needed to do. I don't even know if they really need to make it a higher drop rate. Because, like, with urgent quests, you can pretty much guarantee get several because of how many, like, fodder items that you're getting. But I do agree that there should be, like, a way to level up presets or transfer in fixes from, like, other series. But, like, you have to make it in a way where it doesn't become, like, oh, I get a 1-star that has a 5 fix on it, and I'll put it on, like, a 9-star. Just, like, a quick transfer like that. Like, there has to be kind of like a cost to it. Like, what I was suggesting is that whenever you convert something to cash or whatever, you get these fixa materials. I've been calling it like fixa shards like for a long time. Fixa something, fixa chunks, whatever. And just like the higher like level fixer that you're trying to like, I guess, craft onto a weapon, then it would cost more, and then like whatever the rarity of the weapon is, it would also cost more. Like of these fixa shards, but it could be taken from any fixa across any of like the weapons or armor. So like say you convert to cash a 1-star like one fixa, like fixa 1, that gives you 1 shard. So and then like a fixa level 2 gives you, I don't know, 2 shards, something like that. But like for the higher levels, it probably have to be more than just like 1 at a time. I mean, I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be, but like usually the higher fixes are harder to drop because there's like less of a chance. So maybe it, like once it becomes fixa 5, it's like 10 or 8 of these shards. But when you move up to a rarity, then it's like kind of I guess like an exponential increase or just like a new kind of set. So when you go to a fixa 1 rarity 2, then it would start at 2 these shards or chunks, and just kind of like move on throughout the fixa levels. But then we're trying to craft or put on a fixa at like a 9-star rarity, then you might need, I don't know, like 1,000 shards to put on there for a fixa whatever. Some like somehow, some way, like SEGA would figure out the cost of all these things, and like once I have that simple system implemented, then they could easily just kind of tune it for future rarities. And like people want to have to worry about getting a specific fixa drop for a specific weapon because like that's all you can do right now. Like you can't transfer a fixa across the same weapon series. The only way to really do that is with multi-weaponing, which a lot of people don't want to use certain like weapons with that. So kind of like negates like half that. So like some people want to use like soaring blades, jet boots, for instance. But once if you want, like you drop a fixa like sword, that doesn't fit into your multi-weapon anymore. So you're kind of like forced out of one of the weapons that you want to use for that multi-weapon. So that system just doesn't really work very well. And like with fixa transfer, it's only the same exact named weapon most of the time. The only instance where it isn't is like the Kazar Mark 1 and Kazar normal, but it's basically the same weapon as well. And plus you can't fixa transfer that anyways. You can just like multi that, I guess. But if it did have fixa, it'd probably work that way. Let me think. Is there anything else that I want to say to that? I mean, I guess like having more preset skills would make it more interesting, but I don't think that like fixes like the issue. It would just like make the gameplay more I don't know, more, there'd just be more variety to it, which I think would be nice. Having like more than just like a single type of meta. Because I hate that everybody's just using like a Neosastrian or, the Claire armors. Like it isn't always just that, of course, but like that's like the top DPS. I would like to see several like top DPS builds, kind of like mix and matching like the armors and whatnot, based off like different things in the game or different classes, etc. Like I would love to see that. Make it
Proper
more
weapon
interesting.
customization system. A few preset skills I can pull out of thin air would restore a lot of the flair older Phantasy Star games had. These would be stronger than fixa attack, but come at a cost of only buffing power against one enemy race. You could also have elemental fixa that boosts damage
I guess that
against
could work,
enemies weak to certain elements. For example, fixa light or fixa dolls hunter would go hand in hand with Neo's Justitian series.
But like if the other fixes were still to exist though, these would have to be particularly strong. Because the other fixes can just be used against any content because they're just crit rate, crit damage, and potency. So like these would have to be particularly way stronger, I would say, for people to warrant using these things. Because like the elements or like enemy type is pretty much like too, I don't know, thin. Like there isn't like enough of those kind of enemies to warrant it. Because usually when there's new content out, there's like 2 to 3 elements maybe that are like good. They're not like good for like all the content in that. So you'd have to have like several sets of that fixa, which would be pain. Or like with the dolls thing, like currently there's Clawfist, which was good with dolls, but it just wasn't strong enough because something else outclassed it with generic stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Like it might work.
Fixa light or fixa dolls hunter would go hand in hand
but you'd have to like
with Neo's
replace
Justitian series.
what
Adding
exists
more
or make that
preset
way
skills does
powerful.
sound like RNG hell, so the system would need to be more flexible. Being able to level them up at a heavy material cost, or transfer them across weapon series would be necessary additions to the system. This would immediately make all those prim swords, with preset skills on them, way more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
A different solution to the problem could be something akin to how Phantasy Star Nova handled it.
Nova,
In that
okay.
game, instead of farming for gear, you were farming for materials that you then used in order to craft weapons, units, and augments. A change like this would make the auto-sell feature obsolete and material storage more mandatory, so SEGA would probably feel more forced to include it in the premium set or as a free feature. But this isn't necessarily why I love the way Phantasy Star Nova handled loot.
I mean, isn't it already kinda like partially that way with Nova? Because what you just said was like getting materials to make a weapon, right? But that already kind of exists, like with Kazark, Clothis, and whatnot. It just like eventually those become outdated too. Like there'd have to be value to crafting those weapons over and over again, which there just really isn't right now. Like once they become obsolete, they're just obsolete, and then you move on to the next thing.
In Phantasy Star Nova, augments were visual add-ons which you attach onto your weapon and could move them around and change their angle.
Change their
If you gave a
angle,
weapon
okay,
an
that's
elemental core,
weird.
it even changed its photon color. It was
That's kinda
truly
cool.
incredible. It actually felt like you're building a unique weapon. The biggest strength of PSO2 was always being able to express yourself through your character.
So I guess like kind of like a more modular weapon.
Also, the combat is pretty great. So why not go a step further and allow us to express ourselves through our weapons as well? I would also love to see a return of S-grade augments. Damage multipliers that have
Yes and no. I don't know if I'd necessarily like to see these come back overall. I would like to see the ones that were more interesting instead of just like straight increases, like this precision will stuff right here. Because these just gave like more crit damage or whatever, and those were just like essentially just like regular augments. They just increased your stats. But I would like to see something like this with the Comrade's Blessing, where it's kind of like conditional, where when two or more members are in your party, PP consumption is reduced and the crit rate increases according to the number of members. Like I would just like to see kind of variable like S augments instead. That could be useful for like different situations. Like I would like that. Yeah, I guess I kind of stuck between having variety and not, because like the way that NGS works right now is that it's very expensive to upgrade a single piece, like a weapon or armor. So that's why people don't want to switch all the time, because they can't take any of what they put into that weapon or armor onto the next thing. Yeah, I think like just having like augment transfer in some way or be able to extract augments would be good. But at the same time, like there'd have to be some sort of like penalty or just kind of like a way to not just abuse the system. Because like the way that the game works is you do 1 through 10 of an augment and you put it in. So let's say if you try to refund, you'd probably only get like 1 augment back. So you get like a partial refund. Because like the game wouldn't remember how many you used, right? So like I guess like having a partial refund or a way to transfer in some way. But there'd have to be like a cost to it or a limit, I think. Because like that would affect the market like heavily. Because then like you wouldn't really be able to make Meseta anymore, like with farming augments or really like gear, I guess. So then like any free-to-play players or just premium players that don't scratch, yeah, you want to get like screwed out of money. Because currently like the best way, of course, you know, is whaling in the game. Like that's the best way to make Meseta. But if you want Meseta to buy those said things, like what are you gonna do? S1 streamers blessing increases drop rate, success rate. And fun by 50%. Yes, fun. Fun points? Yeah, I wouldn't want this to fully return.
conditions, or change how certain aspects of your class behave, go a long way in terms of weapon customizability. All of the augments in NGS are unconditional, and for the lack of a better word, sterile. Even
Yeah, I would like
weapon
to see better
elements were
augments,
relegated
yes.
to a gimmick only a few weapon
Like,
series
more
interact
interesting
with.
ones.
Because of that, they never provide a big enough advantage to justify making multiple elemental weapons to deal with different enemies. Like, do you really want me to invest in a weapon that has a light element attached to it, and performs only marginally better against a handful of enemies than the identical elementless version?
Yeah.
Elemental weapons are honestly very underwhelming in general. In PSO2, weapon elements were just another weapon customization mechanic. Matching elemental weakness boosted your weapon stats, causing a roughly 3 to 5% damage increase. It differed from enemy to enemy, some even punished you for using the wrong element due to their resistances, but in ultra-hard difficulty it was normalized to roughly 3%. In NGS that damage boost is still in place. Matching the elemental weakness amplifies the damage by 15%,
Yeah, it's a
and
lot
mismatching
more.
only gives a 10% boost. The problem is that the weapon attack stat is lower
Yeah,
to
way lower.
compensate for this boost, and because of that, elemental weapons often don't perform better than their elementless counterparts. Honestly, that wasn't a good trade. It just made elemental weapons feel really bad outside of extreme min-maxing situations, like clearing a purple trigger by yourself. Elemental
Yeah, like, it's kind of like a give or take with that, because in base game, every weapon had an element that you could, like, change, essentially. So, because NGS isn't like that, like, there's some weapons that just don't have any element, and some that do, it's kind of hard. And I would say that, like, the way that it currently is, I think is fair. Like, it should just be really good at what the element is, what it's weak to. Like, if you're facing light enemies with a Justitian, you should do well with it. But if you're facing other things, just not as much. I think one thing that's, like, missing that's huge from NGS that base game had was status effects. Because with the elements, you could do status effects as well. While in, NGS, it's just downs that aren't different from each other in the slightest. So you can no longer, like, confuse enemies, really, like, poison them, like, damage them with fire over time. There just isn't that anymore. It's just gone completely, which I think is stupid. Yeah, I feel like the way that they could do it is make the elements, like, even stronger, like, even way stronger against light enemies, or, like, for that instance. So, like, the elements should be, like, way stronger in their respective elements, but I'd still think that the generic ones should be better in everything else. Because once you make the element ones too strong, then what's the point of having the no element ones? Like, you come into the same problem.
weapons give you access to elemental downs, even on non-technique classes. That's why they're useful in those min-max cases, but the system...
Yeah, elemental downs, you can get those too, but it isn't, like, that much. Like, it does provide to it, but it isn't that much versus just using techniques.
Overall feels like a downgrade to me. We're basically at SEGA's mercy to get new elemental weapons.
So, like, sometimes you don't even, like, get an elemental down to happen depending on the fight, and if you're, like, by yourself or something.
After 2 years, there is still not a single wind element wand in the game. What's up with that? A loot overhaul
Get that wind
has been
element
my
wand.
biggest wish for the version 2 update, but I won't be terribly disappointed if it won't happen. I just think this kind of rebranding is the perfect opportunity to pull something like this off.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess we will have to tune in to the NGS headline on Tuesday
Best time
to
for an
see if there are
overhaul.
any plans for that. I really hope the devs acknowledge these issues and have something planned to address them. Maybe that's why they're so secretive about the contents of the version 2 update, and why the Renaisa weapon series is being replaced by a new one.
I think that one's just being
overdosing on
replaced
Hopia.
because they want people to catch up faster to version 2 content. It's just probably gonna be a stronger,
Anyway,
low-level
I'd like to hear
weapon.
your thoughts on the matter. Am I overthinking it, or am I onto something? I really think NGS would have been a better game if the loot was more interesting again. Anyway,
Yeah, I definitely
hope
agree
you
with
have a
that.
fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, that was a pretty good video there. Yeah, I just feel like the points just needed, like, some adjustments. Like, the Nova thing is interesting. The Nova, yeah, that's interesting. I don't think it would ever happen, but it would be kind of cool. Yeah, overall, I think they could definitely adjust the fixes system to be a better way. That could be one way to make old loot better. I think, what I was saying before, just have weapons drop with augments that you can like rip out of or like transfer in like easily to other pieces. Like, I don't know, how would they even keep track of that? Maybe if you like transfer in and it destroys the weapon. I mean, isn't that what it did in base, right? Or am I crazy? Like, I think that there's like multiple ways that you could do it. Yeah, I feel like the cost of like transferring in would be to destroy a piece of gear. So like there would be a cost to it or something. I don't know. I just feel like there has to be a cost to it. Otherwise, you could just like willy-nilly just keep switching with everything. And there wouldn't really be a market for anything. Like just you spend so like we already spend so little on like the majority of capsules anyways. So like it just like make that even worse. And like the only way to like make money would just be raw Maseta farming and like Alanoth, which is hell. That's just hell. I don't want to do that. To add fix a transfer passes like base had for augments. I mean they could just do that for augments too, but I don't know. Or they could do they could take it on in like multiple ways. I just don't want to go fully back to how it was, but I would like it to get like some like mix. That's kind of like what NGS is right now, right? They've been taking a lot of things from base game, but they have some new things as well that kind of blends together in like a a decent like set of systems or mechanics. It just needs like a refresh. Make it streamlined, but not so simple. Like, but also not so complex. It's like a middle ground. Like, you can make it complex for those that want it to be complex, but keep it simple for those that want it to be simple. As it is now, you get hundreds of trash equips per hour. If something is good on it, that's a lot of stopping and sifting. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Is that base game didn't give you as many items, while NGS gives you a ton, like every second. Yeah. There'd have to be like literally it'd have to be an overhaul. That's like what they're suggesting. Overhaul. It would have to be an overhaul with like how loot is dropped and how like what the loot gives on the stuff. Honestly, for combat zones, I guess like that loot couldn't matter, but I guess like more what I'm suggesting is the loot inside of like certain quests, like Geolab, Purple Triggers, Urgent Quests. Like if those had like more value to them, I feel like that would just be better. I guess like with combat zones, it doesn't matter as much because you're just pretty much there to just farm materials and money anyways, and not really there to get like weapons and armor most of the time, I would say. Yeah, they just have to like look over everything, which I don't know if they're willing to do. But it would be nice to see maybe a couple of those changes. Like they could literally just do the fix the thing, and that's it. And that would like improve it in some way. I don't know. We shall see. A few more days until the headline, and just a couple more weeks until the version 2 update comes. So yeah, yeah. Let me put the link to this video for you guys there, just so you can give it like a like or something. Subscribe to them. This was Kathy on YouTube, yeah. Pretty nice video. Nice way to bring it up, I would say.